my going to Eastern, I was working with Connecticut Legal Services on Main Street in Willimantic. I was laid off, and I had been taking a few night courses here and there with QVCC. And so my mother had said to me, you know, why don't you just take this opportunity and just go back to school? You've been wanting to do this, and it's the perfect timing. And my sister, who attended UConn, right? She had told me the same thing. And my sister was the first one in our family who had graduated from university. And she actually was the first one from my mother's side of the family, for example, like my grandmother, great grandmother, etc., and also from my father's side, right? No one in our family had graduated from college, and my sister was that first one that broke the ice. And so she really encouraged me, and she said, Yolanda, if I could do it, trust me, you're smarter than me, you can do it. So I chose Eastern mainly because it was right here in Willimantic, and I could walk to campus. And that was really it, my total reason for going to Eastern, because at the time, even though I lived in Willimantic, Eastern was a different world. I had never been on campus. I knew nothing about Eastern. And the weekend, I remember when I went to register for classes, and it was the Friday before classes were to begin. And so I got to pick 4 classes, and the person who was doing the registering had said to, was telling us, these may not be the best classes, but, remember, it's just a semester, then you'll get to pick what you really want. And so I was like, okay. I went during the weekend on campus to familiarize myself with the campus because I had never been on campus. Monday morning, I walked into Goddard Hall, and I got there early so I could find my way to the room. I sat down, and it was Economics 101. And all I kept saying to myself was, economics. Okay, Yolanda, this is only until May. This is only until May. You can do this. You'll get through it. And then Dr. Rona Free walked through the door with this huge smile, and she was surprised that there was anybody there before 8 o'clock. And the minute she walked in through that door and we locked eyes, Yulia, I knew I had made the right choice and that I was going to love Eastern. And to this day, she is now the president of St. Joseph's College. And to this day, Rona and I, we are still friends.
Oh, wonderful.
And she, Eastern, I still say to this day, I graduated in 1999.
I think I lost you. I lost the connection is. Um, Yolanda, are you there? Yes, the connection went off.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
And Rona has the same smile.
And Rona
Yeah,
still has the
the
same
same smile.
smile.
Yes, yeah.
I still keep in touch with many of my professors.
Mhm.
My academic advisor was Dr. Christopher Vasilopoulos, and you could not have two more opposite people because, politically speaking, I am a Democrat, liberal. He is a Republican, conservative, and we had some really interesting conversations. But unlike today, where the political atmosphere is so polarized and people can't even talk to each other, he and I had debates, but not screaming and yelling debates, like actual conversation debates. And something which I feel is really, really missing in our society. We have to be able to listen to each other. Um, the most challenging thing, and for me, I challenge myself constantly, is to listen to someone who thinks different than you and really listen to them without getting into a fight with them. That's challenging. So that can be very, very challenging. But if you can make it through, you have success.
Yeah, it's very true. So after Rona and your another professor, do you remember other professors at Eastern?
Oh my goodness, yes. So I majored in political science,
Mhm.
and I took literally every class that Chris Vasilopoulos gave because I just absolutely loved him as a professor. And I also took courses with Dr. Jay Cobbledick, and he taught courses in Middle Eastern studies. And so I found them very interesting because he traveled a lot to the Middle East. And so his teachings weren't necessarily just from the viewpoint of the West and how the US government views the West, but he taught um, from the east side of the Arabic history. And so you got to see a different point of view. And so that was very interesting. Um, and then there was Dr. Hope Fitz, who taught philosophy. And I I was like two courses away from a philosophy minor. That's how many classes I took with Hope. I did end up taking, um, I could have had a minor in economics because of classes that I took with Rona, because I ended up liking her so much. And so she called me into her office one day and said, why don't you do either a minor or a major in economics? Because you're like almost there. And I just looked at her and I started laughing and I said to her, what the hell am I going to do with an economics major? So, and she says, well, you're taking all these economic courses. And I said, Rona, because I like you as a teacher, but it's not because I actually have an interest in working in the field. And then I had Steve Kenton for the math requirement. And I am really horrible at math. And that was the one and only class that I
Yeah, the internet keeps on breaking. Okay. Um,
okay.
yeah.
And that was with Dr. Stephen Kenton. We are still friends today. And when he called me into his office to tell me my grade, I literally started crying because I was so happy with that D minus. It meant I wasn't going to have to repeat the course. And I said to him, we should all go to Main Street Cafe and celebrate. And that's exactly what we did. We walked down to Main Street Cafe, or at the time, it was, I think it was like the Victorian Lady. And we walked down there and we went to celebrate that no one had failed the class. Over half of the class got a D minus, a D, or a C minus, but we all passed. And so we were all thrilled and we went to celebrate. And so those are the great memories that I have. And I really like that Eastern has the GER requirements, the general education requirements, because through those, I took courses that I normally probably would not have taken. And they ended up being very interesting topics, which I got to learn. For example, one of my GERs ended up being oceanography. And, and it turned out to be a really interesting class. I wasn't able to go on the class trip because they were going to go to, oh my God, an island, but it was like really rocky
Block,
and
Block Island.
yes, and what they were going to be doing was not handicap accessible. And although I wasn't in the wheelchair at the time, they were, he said to me, look, Yolanda, honestly, he said, we're going to be walking over rocks and climbing rocks and doing all crazy stuff and going in the water and everything. And so he said, we talked about it. And I said, is this going to affect my grade? And he looks at me and he's like, girl, you've got an A plus. Nothing's going to affect your grade. He said, you could stop coming to class for the rest of the semester and you still got an A. You're the only one that shows up to every class. So I was like, oh, okay. So I got to sleep in late that day, right? So,
Yeah.
but and then I had an art course with Dr. Downing, but not the father, the daughter. And she was really good. And because of that class, I ended up taking another class. And I also had Ann Dawson for the second art class. And we still keep in touch. And then, of course, I was a Spanish major, and I had Dr. Sonia Cintron Marrero. Um, and I had known her for many years. And then there's Dr. King Chan, who still he's the head of the language department. Um, and then there was Dr. Agustin Bernal. He's retired, but we still keep in touch on Facebook. So, oh my goodness, yes, I still keep in touch with a lot of people.
Wonderful. And was Elsa Nunes president at that time?
She was not president. Dr. David Carter was president.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to play jokes on Dr. Carter. I was always playing jokes on Dr. Carter. And one year during the polar plunge, Dr. Carter came out on the front page of our local newspaper, the Chronicle. And he came out running to jump into the river. And the polar plunge, for those who are not familiar, is a fundraiser that the Eastern Rugby Club does to raise funds for our local soup kitchen. And every year it's very popular. They have like 600, 700 people show up. People show up in crazy costumes. It is done in February when the river is freezing cold. And they'll show up in bikinis and Speedos, you name it. So Dr. Carter is running into the water. And the way the picture came out, because the water's freezing, it looked like Dr. Carter was tiptoeing over the water, right? And it was just like a really funny picture. And so I saw that, and I was a student. And so I put the paper in an inter-office envelope, but it was a brand new one, so it didn't have any offices on it. And I typed a label, Dr. David Carter, President, ECSU, President's Office. And off it went in the inter-office mail to Dr. Carter. He pops up at Student Affairs, where I was working as a student worker. And there I had put a post-it on it, a sticky poster with an arrow pointing to him. And the sticky post-it said, ECSU's hunk of the month. And so he goes down to the office, and Dr. Arvin Leveskin, who had been he was the dean of student affairs at the time. He has no idea what I have done. No one has any idea what I had done. And all of a sudden he shows up, and when I saw him, in my head, damn, how did he know it was me? And he just stands there. And of course, he always dressed impeccable in a suit. Impeccable, impeccable. And he stands there and he puts his hand on his waist and he kind of gives this model turn and he says, actually, I think I'm better suited for GQ magazine, don't you? And so Dr. L is like, am I missing something? And so Dr. Carter slams the paper on the counter of the administrative assistant's desk and he says, is this what you have your workers doing? And when Dr. Lebedkin saw it, he looks at it and he tried so hard to keep a straight face, but he couldn't. He just couldn't. And the whole place started laughing. And that is, of all my pranks, that is like my favorite that I pulled on Dr. Carter. And even um, after he retired, several times that I bumped into him, he would still bring that up. And that, and he's like, Yolanda, that one was a classic. He says, I will never forget that one. So yes, I have wonderful memories at Eastern.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear. And how do you think Eastern changed?
Oh my goodness. Eastern, so when I went to Eastern was starting to go through a change. Um, Dr. Carter really had this incredible vision for Eastern. And he was determined that he was going to bring Eastern into, back then, the 20th century. And so when I started at Eastern, the library, the new library was not there. That used to be the baseball softball field. And when it would rain, that would get muddy. And so that's where the baseball field used to be. Um, then in my junior year was when they started construction of the new library. And some people were, oh my God, this is crazy having this construction here in the middle of campus. And when it would rain, it would be so muddy. And but Dr. Carter had this dream, right? And he would say to me, Yolanda, look, this is what we're going to have. This is what it's going to be like. And he would talk to me a lot because at the time I was on the Board of Selectmen in town. And so, and he would show me the plans and he would walk me around and I could see it. And now look at the beautiful library that is there. Look at the beautiful residence halls that are there. Um, and just how much. And then there was the parking garages so that the people who live around campus wouldn't be complaining so much about students parking in their driveways because I, as a selectman, I would get calls from people who live in the hill section. Yolanda, I've got students parking in my driveway because if there were no parking spaces on the streets, students would see empty driveway. Oh, they're at work. I'll park in the driveway while they're at work. And then somebody would come home. Yeah, they were at work, but they were working third shift. And now here it is, it's 8 o'clock, and they're coming home from work, and there's students that were parking in their driveway because there was no parking on campus and there was no parking anymore parking on the streets. So, um, and then of course, when Elsa came along, Elsa continued, not only continued with that work, but she also had great imagination and great fortitude and continued on with continuing to make Eastern even better. I mean, look at that arts and sciences building. Oh my gosh. I've gone there to attend plays, to attend concerts, and it's just, I had gone to events at Schaefer Hall, and I mean, there's just no comparison, and I mean, it's just incredible. It's just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. The campus is really pretty, and especially right now with the spring, it's flowers and it's trees starting to bloom. It's really
Mhm.
really nice campus.
And and David also understood that the outside aesthetics were just as important as the inside. If you wanted to attract students, you also needed to make the outside attractive, because it didn't matter how fancy the inside was, but if the outside didn't match the inside, people weren't going to want to go on campus. And you have to have both in order for it to work.
Yeah. So what kind of advice will you give to our current students?
Oh, so to current students, I know that as younger students, right, sometimes the big thing is to go party, go to Blarney's or go to party houses and get drunk. And yeah, that's part of youth and growing up, etc. But you also have to take this opportunity to take everything that Eastern has to offer. And Eastern has a lot to offer. Once you leave Eastern, if you are not well prepared, you are not going to do well in the workforce. You are not going to do well in the work environment. If you're sitting in class and you are tweeting, Facebooking, Instagramming, and all that stuff, you're you're not going to be able to do that at work. They're they're not going to accept that, and you're not going to last long job. You're not going to move up the chain in a job. And so Eastern is a place where you should start learning to to curb those instincts. It should be a place where you learn to communicate with others, where, as I had said before, you learn to have discussions with people that you do not agree with. I think one of the best things for me was having met Dr. Vasilopoulos and having those conversations, having those debates, because when I was on the Board of Selectmen, there I was a Democrat. There were Republicans on that board. And you know what? He helped me with our discussions, or I would talk to him about meetings and things, and he would help me. He would talk to me, give me Republican point of views, and help me to how to talk to them. And, so that we wouldn't end up in a meeting screaming and yelling at each other. And to this day, I haven't been on the board. It's been about 15 years, maybe a little more. And my Republican counterparts, they still talk to me. And not just, hello, how are you doing? But they still talk to me about local issues in town. And we still have respect for each other. And college, that's the place where you can learn to do that. And if a speaker's coming on campus that you don't agree with, go listen to them. Listen, and you don't have to agree with what they're saying, but listen, learn, because sometimes we get so wrapped up in that's not what I think, that's not what you're crazy, blah blah blah, and no one is listening. So we're both stuck and nothing is happening. And there's nothing wrong with listening. And a lot of times, majority of problems can be solved if somebody would just shut up and just listen to the other person. And so if you can't have this type of conversation in a life.
Yeah. So, Yolanda, you obviously spent a lot of time in service and serving on boards and serving for the community. Can you give us an advice of how to combine service with academic times? Our students have to learn the subjects, have to attend classes, but they also need to become leaders and need to learn how to serve their community. How can they combine both?
Okay. So first is, what are your interests? What are you interested in? Are you interested in the environment? Are you interested in working with children? And there are many places here in town that you can do volunteer work. Of course, we all know the soup kitchen. There's the Holy Family Shelter that provides shelter for families who have either been evicted or women who have left an abusive relationship. There is the Mill Museum. We also have a railroad museum, which is over on Bridge Street. The schools, our Windham Public Schools, are always looking for volunteers to help out with um, not only the children in elementary schools, but also the middle school and the high school. We have a Lions Club in Willimantic. I am a member of the Lions Club, and so you can certainly reach out to me. I am on Facebook, and so if anyone wishes to reach out to me on Facebook regarding volunteer in town or any type of resources in town, just reach out to me. I would be more than happy to speak to you. Um, our our library is always looking for volunteers. Um, our police department, sometimes they have events and so forth and look for volunteers. I mean, there's so many places in town. And so, you know, it's really what interests you. And, or, you know what? You can be like me. Some of the things that I've gotten into over the years, I had no idea what it was, but I just went and turned out to be great. Like Eastern, when I went to Eastern, I knew nothing about Eastern. Um, and boom, and now I absolutely love Eastern. And and one thing that I would like to mention because I feel it's very important. When I went to Eastern, I was able to go to Eastern thanks to people who at the time donated to scholarships at Eastern. And so I received not only financial aid, but scholarships. And I got quite a few scholarships and was able to literally study for free thanks to scholarships. And scholarships do not exist without people donating to scholarships. And so, to students, if you're receiving scholarships, when you graduate from Eastern and you get that job and you're doing well, remember to pay it forward. Someone um, took the interest to donate to Eastern scholarships to help someone like you to go to school. And I believe in paying it forward. Just don't forget it once you're out there and you get a job and make it in this world.
Wonderful, Yolanda. This has been very important conversation for both myself and our students. Is anything else you'd like to add? Or I haven't asked.
No, I just want to tell our students Go Eastern, go Warriors, and just go out there and make the world great. We are, things right now seem crazy, but you know what? You are the future, and you are the ones that can change things and make this world a better place. So go out there and do it.
Wonderful. You are our best advocate, Yolanda, and I can thank you for this conversation because right now we are accepting new students and we are getting ready to graduate a big cohort of students as well. So,
Oh, great.
yes, in a way, your speech is a great encouragement for the graduates and also a great advocate for the new students who are still thinking about choosing Eastern or enrolling at Eastern. So this is just so perfect timing.
Well, it's my pleasure. And I love Eastern. It's been a big part of my life and will continue to be so. And I will always support Eastern. And again, anyone can reach out to me on Facebook, Yolanda Negrón. And, you know, in regards to Eastern, anything having to do with Willimantic, the town, just reach out to me. I will be more than happy to have a conversation with you, whether it's messaging or what have you. I'm always available.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.